My first question is, how important are musical boundaries to you in the band? So, like, since your last sort of full-length release, you've moved
Yeah.
away. I get, I guess, more from the indie stuff that you might say, and then more towards an industrial direction, and then this new album sort of a bit with a mix of everything from what I've sort of heard of it. Can you tell me about that sort of journey and creating this album?
I certainly don't believe in any musical boundaries. And I think that's always been the ethos of the horrors. There's never any
Mm,
limits or rules or any right or wrongs of what we should do. And we've always kind of taken
mm,
inspiration from, you know, every world and sound of music we like, whether it's something you can hear or not hear. There might be a Tamla Motown beat in a tambourine that you might not pick up on, or it might be,
mm,
or it might be something more obvious, sort of like a craftwork electronic noodle. One thing I think that we'd never really wanted to be is an indie band, but when you're a bunch of
yeah.
well, we're not a bunch of guys anymore because we've got an amazing new keyboard player called Amelia in the group. But when you're a
Mm,
band with guitars, sometimes that is an easy label. And actually, I never really
mm,
know exactly. I don't think any band really likes being, genre kind of pocketed.
mm.
And we really like all different kinds of music. So I would find it difficult to do that. But yeah, so for us, it is always about exploring, trying out new ideas, and generally, it's just about whatever is exciting us at the time, whatever we're interested in.
Mm.
With this record, I was definitely, well, Faris and I were definitely feeling that we wanted to kind of um, explore and return to kind of darker, heavier atmospheres, heavier worlds of music,
Mm.
whether that's heavier ambience or heavier guitars. But we also had a kind of quite a clear idea that we wanted to kind of not be too precious about like the idea of kind of pop song writing. Anyway, so we gave ourselves the freedom
Mm.
to explore and just enjoy making the record.
Amazing, yeah. I understand what you say about the. I feel like that label gets thrown around if you're a band with guitars, you're just going to
Yeah,
get labeled indie by a lot of a lot of the press and stuff. But like I've been going through in preparation for this, um, basically like all of your discography,
yeah.
and it's so varied. I'd never describe it as indie to anyone. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just been part of the journey, really. I mean, like
mm,
for me, I know there's very different sounds and changes along the way, but that's just been a part of, the band's career or like journey, really. And
yeah,
I mean, it's scary to say, but this is our 20th year. In fact, today
mm,
is the 18th anniversary of our debut album, Strange House. Uh,
mm,
we get our things brought up to our attention by a really great group of fans in Mexico. They're
mm,
called the Horrors Fans Mexico. Anyway, they
yeah,
always like announce when it's like someone's birthday or a date that we should remember. So today is the 18th.
yeah,
I mean, it's certainly come on a long way from there.
mm,
We started off in a very specific world, which I think once
mm.
we moved away from that has just been a kind of constant evolution.
No, definitely. You can hear it on. I feel like all of the records.
Yeah.
Um, and then I've listened to like the EPs as well. The EPs put out back in 21, which obviously quite industrial sounding.
Yeah.
And this album sort of feels like a mesh for a few different sort of eras of the horrors, for want of a better word. But
Yeah,
how do you feel?
I would agree with that. I mean, the EPs were kind of like yeah, they were quite industrial,
Mm,
heavy, kind of quite rocking
mm,
moments. And for us, that was a bit of a way of just kind of like shedding a skin or like refreshing the palate, like just having some
mm.
fun, really. Like it was nice
Yeah.
to put them out on 7 inch. We did two 7 inch releases with those tracks. Six
Mm,
tracks went up online. And at that point, I thought that might kind of continue into this album, but I think the more we got into writing, the more it was apparent that, to be honest, it sounds to me kind of like
mm.
quite a classic horrors record. This new record,
Yeah.
and I feel like yeah, there is there's elements and atmospheres from things
Mm,
done before. I mean, there was a couple of points when we were like talking about, oh, we should just do our classic, classic Josh guitar on this, or you know,
Yeah.
like slightly referencing things that we liked that we've done before, which we never really do. Things like Primary Colors, which was a special album for us.
Mm.
So yeah, but then it's kind of like, for me, I don't know. We've said it's kind of like hard to explain, but we've said it kind of sounds like a classic Horrors album from the future, because it's got like a kind of old school Horrors, sometimes nostalgic, like it seems familiar. But I think with some of the programming and electronic stuff, it also is kind of like new territory for us as well.
Definitely, yeah. Like a good mix of like you've got the touch points, but you're also sort of pushing forward. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was nice having, and
Yeah.
it was just a different way of working, really. I mean, it was kind of working with a different lineup of the band.
Mm.
Um,
I was actually going to ask more about that. How do you feel like this new lineup you've got? So with Amelia and Jordan, how is that sort of
I'm
working
feeling
for the
great
band dynamic?
about it. Yeah, I'm feeling really great about
Mm.
it. There's not any bad feeling with us and the other guys, Joe and Tom, who've been in the
Yeah.
band, you know, the whole time. They were involved on the last EPs as well, and they both kind of chosen to kind of take a break, or like put,
Yeah.
put their involvement on pause for now. But there's not been any
Mm.
falling out. Uh, but like, you know, what that has done, with, which is kind of like, which is also at this point was kind of like a really well, what's the right word? Kind of like,
Mm.
what's the word I'm looking for? It was just kind of a kind of almost the more I think of it, basically having two new members completely rejuvenated our kind of like feeling towards playing live, the energy in the rehearsal room, the energy on the stage. It's happened at the same time we've got a new record, so it's just brought like a kind of fresh breath of life and energy across
Yeah.
all of the areas, which is kind of straightforward, really. But it's also been quite kind of crucial because, you know, 20 years into stuff, it's kind of like, it's nice to have this quite energetic feeling within the group. And Jordan, who's playing drums, is like an old friend of the band. I played in bands with him over the years. We've probably known him for about 15 years. And Amelia has been working with Faris recently. She was involved with the record, and it just felt like a really natural choice. And they've both felt it's just been very easy, really, which is kind of probably unusual. But they've just slotted in, part of the gang, really.
I love that. Yeah, it's amazing. We sort of move on and talk about sort of the band's aesthetics, because obviously, like back in the early days, you were all sort of known for a certain look, things like that. And how would you say, some people call it like a gothic aesthetic? How would you say the band's sort of general vibe has like changed over time since
Yeah.
Strange House?
I mean, it's always been just like a kind of a further reflection of the people and characters involved, and to a certain point, the music. I mean, it was very stylized around the early days, which was kind of like quite 60s kind of garage meets almost like Susan the Banshees and The Cure kind of thing, kind of like 60s, kind of like weirdly 60s punk meets 70s punk. I don't know, with a bit of a, like, you know, that was just our look. We were like 18, 19, 20. So like we were having fun dressing up in those clothes. And it was that was our kind of gang aesthetic almost before the band started. But when the band started, we kind of pushed it harder because it was like a kind of group, like a gang kind of attitude, a gang. But it kind of softened a bit, I think, with age and things moving forward. I mean, I guess we were all into that side of things, you know. Like, to be honest, I don't think Faris and I. There was a moment when we were a bit more colourful after Primary Colours and around Skying, and that kind of was a reflection of maybe we were listening to slightly more psychedelic music, and the music was slightly more psychedelic. We were playing, our hair was a bit longer, but generally we're kind of like, our wardrobes are 99% black, so that's the way we were.
Yeah. Love it. So you said it's very close to like 20 years of the Horrors as a band. How do you think you personally have changed over time? Obviously, like not speaking for the rest of the band, but how do you think you personally changed over the 20 years in the band?
Well, you know, I don't know. I like to hope for kind of growing up a bit, got a bit more sensible. I feel like being in the band also gives you the reason, like opportunity not to be so responsible as well. Like, I mean, one thing, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I still love all the things I've always loved. I mean, my main passion is music, really. So I like to DJ, I collect records. Like that's my kind of lifelong passion, and being able to make music is just like a kind of like another great reward of being in that world. So I feel like we're in a fortunate, like lucky position. It's a job that I really appreciate, and it's kind of like, yeah. I mean, the other job I do is DJing. I mean, I do it as a job as well. You know, I run a lot of my own clubs, but I also have a couple of residencies, and I kind of treat that as work as much as it's a great creative thing. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I hope I've matured, but I guess I'm not. You know, probably still the same fan of music I always was.
No, that's a positive thing, though. You know, over time, like,
Yeah, I mean, now I meet people who are younger, and I realize that when you're in your early 20s, whatever, you know, like you're not that as grown up. I don't know. Maybe it's just like subtle
yeah.
growth, getting grumpy, probably.
Talking about your DJ stuff, for
Hmm.
someone who's never been to one of your sets, how would you describe it?
I play a lot of different genres, so it depends where you
Yeah.
came to see me. I mean, I've been doing a night in London for almost as long as the Horrors, called the Cave Club, which is very much focused on like underground, kind of rare, mainly 60s, obscure guitar music, psychedelic music, or garage music, whatever you want to call it. Kind of internationally, American stuff, European stuff, South American, sometimes some Japanese crazy records I've done over the years. But that's got a very kind of like psychedelic, kind of quite 60s. I don't ever want the club to feel like a retro, but it is very much a kind of immersive psychedelic experience. That one, for example.
Yeah.
I just try and play good music for dancing. I feel like the most important thing for a DJ, whatever the genre they're playing, is obviously good music. But I think it should be, you know, records are used as tools to make people dance, unless it's a specific listening environment. I don't agree with like a selfish DJ, if you know what I mean. So generally, whatever the genre is, I'm trying to create an exciting dance floor experience. The other thing I'm a really big fan and collector of is rare soul music. I've always been a big 60s kind of collector of rare 60s soul, but at the moment I'm really into rare 70s and 80s. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's like the rare soul scene. You know, it's sometimes known as Northern Soul. Essentially, it's kind of rare soul. And again, I play those records. I just want people to dance to them. Really, it's kind of like sharing a love of records, or you know, tunes or artists.
Amazing.
You'll have a good time.
Yeah, that's what we want. Um, Another question would be, because I've been going through all of the whole discography basically.
Yeah.
Do you have a horror song that you personally love and wish more people would hear? Like for me, it's Fire Escape. That's a great one for
Oh
me.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So do
Yeah,
you have like a personal? Yeah.
I've like, well, funnily enough, I don't know. I mean, I have
Mm,
uh probably a track like that on every album, and then like different feelings with different albums. I really like.
mm,
I was thinking about Weighed Down yesterday, which is a quite cool track
mm,
from V, which is quite a nice kind of under the radar. We were talking
yeah.
about maybe doing that in our like live sessions. We're about to kind of we're doing these stripped back in-store
Mm,
shows. We were talking about maybe doing that one. I like You
mm,
Said from Skying. I think is a cool one that's maybe we never really played that much. I like
mm,
Wild Eyed from Skying as well. Um, yeah, there are a few.
yeah.
Ocean's Burning is like a kind of like slightly. I mean, I feel like people probably like that one, but
Mm.
like a deep cut favorite of mine.
Nice, nice. Um,
Excuse me.
can we go back to the? You're right.
I'm fine. I just got woken up. I'm
Yeah,
just, I don't know, some kind of
yeah.
early, I don't know, what is it? Hay fever or cold? I don't know, something like that.
All right. I mean, it's going around, isn't it?
Yeah,
So going back to the album now.
right.
What was the creative progress like? Because you said a lot of new energy in the band. How did the album take shape over time? Can you sort of go into a bit more detail about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, kind of the new energy kind of came towards the
Mm,
end of the recording process, to be honest. But so
mm,
basically, the majority of the record was written by Faris and I working
mm,
here on this computer, actually in my bedroom most of the time, or around this table.
yeah.
So it was kind of quite a kind of like back to basics kind of approach. But I had synthesizers, guitar, like just simple bits and pieces, like a few keyboards, guitar, bass, drum machine, a box of pedals and stuff. So yeah, we were kind of like wrote the record essentially on Ableton, but there were like live instruments involved, and Faris and I were working here. Generally, I would start a song. Usually, my motivation for starting songs is a feeling rather than actual like chords. I kind of try and create an atmosphere. I often start with like a rhythm first, just to kind of set, and then build on there to kind of set a tone or set an atmosphere is how I usually start things, which is kind of, I don't know if that's unconventional or not. It's almost more like a kind of electronic producer, I'd imagine. Like it's rare that we sit down with like guitars, but we did do that on a few occasions. One such was writing the album closer, LA Runaway, which we wrote at this table, just sitting down playing a guitar, which was quite interesting because, well, actually, what was interesting was it ended up turning into almost like a kind of like New Order, kind of like blue. Well, I'm just making it easy, not quite Blue Monday, but kind of like, you know, classic kind of electronic kind of banger.
Yeah.
And then once we actually got to work with the producer, Eve Rothman, it ended up being kind of more guitar based, more kind of almost traditional, like Horrors, bass, drums, guitar kind of vibe. But yeah, so we started here, and then we took the tunes into the studio to work with a guy called Eve Rothman, a producer who's got a studio in LA. He plays in a band called Eve Tumor and produces them as well. And he invited us to a studio in LA because he had the space, and he was like, it would be cheaper for you guys to get 2 tickets and come out and work with me. So then we took the demos out and we're working out of him, which is where we got really into exploring all the different sounds. And we had like, all the instruments out and pedals all over the floor. So yeah, it kind of went through a few journeys really. And then we were, at this point is when we started reaching out to Amelia, who's now playing keyboards in the band. And we were sending some tracks what we thought specifically suited her, like kind of in a more kind of electronic world of production. Just said, you can do anything you want. You can fuck things up, cut them up, process them, do any kind of edits you want, mess around with sounds. And then, so that brought a new energy to some of the tunes. And then we had a session that we came back to London, and we hired this Airbnb in Tottenham, which was a bit of a weird idea. We kind of turned the Airbnb kind of like, wasn't quite a conservatory, but it was almost like a back room that went into the garden. And anyway, we ripped it apart to a studio, and immediately came down from Glasgow and was working on the record with us there. And then at that point, we were like, well, look, do you know what? We're going to just open up the whole album. So she had her own working space, and we were sending her the music as we were recording it in the front room, essentially. And she was like, getting involved, messing around with the sounds and bringing her own ideas and textures and her own world into the record. So yeah, it's kind of like we recorded it over a year. It's been like 8 years since we did a record, 7 or 8 years. But the album itself was actually recorded between January and like December of 2023, I think. It's weird how it takes so long to get things going. Anyway, so we're finally going to release it.
No, definitely. Like, you can hear that on the record. There's definitely like moments of where there's like clipping away, like different sort of like little insertions. Yeah, LA Runaway as well is great. That's a great closing track.
Thank you. That's going to be a single, actually. That's going to be the lead-up single before the album. We've put out quite a lot of music from this album because we felt like we kind of had a little bit of like, not starting from scratch, but we wanted to kind of like reconnect and kind of build up campaign and try and reach out to new ears and old ears. So that's going to be a single quite soon. And again, that one kind of stands out as being potentially more, like it ended up just being like more of a pop song than the rest of the record, I think, like more traditionally a pop song. But we always say, and I think we've made the mistake, like those songs present themselves kind of quite naturally, and you know, things like Still Life happened like that. That's Something to Remember Me By kind of happened like that as well. Like just kind of one of those things. And the more you think about it, the more you try and write a song for it to be a poppy song that end up less substantial. We find it is, for us anyway. So Looking forward to that one.
Definitely.
And we haven't played that, so looking forward to playing that live as well.
Mm. Amazing. I love how you when you like when the Horrors does more of a poppy sound, even like Something to Remember Me by, which is amazing song. It still feels like it's the Horrors. Do you know what I mean? Like you still got your imprint on it,
I hope
and
so.
like yeah,
That would be the yeah. That's what we would hope. Yeah,
yeah,
Something to Memory by definitely has that. I think.
mm,
Yeah, I heard that the other day. We've been doing these album listening parties, and I'm
mm.
listening on Spotify, and then at the end of the album, it then just shuffles onto another horror song. I'm like, oh, it's this one. That's Something to Remember by the other day. I was like, oh, that sounds all right. Sounds good.
Yeah. I saw I think it was on Instagram. Faris said I don't know if you were doing a listening party it's happened, but Luminous wasn't his favorite album, something like that, something along those lines,
Yeah, I mean, we actually did the
or his
Luminous.
least favorite.
We just did the Luminous listening party this week,
Mm.
and I
Ah,
joined. Huh? Sorry.
sorry, how was that sort of looking back? 'Cause I think it came out 2015 or
Yeah.
slightly earlier.
Well,
How
I
was
mean,
that looking back with context?
I think we all have a slightly kind of like difficult relationship with that record. I think it just comes down to
Mm,
the fact that we've been really busy for a really long time. Maybe it
mm,
was the right time for us to make a record. I feel like the energy in the band wasn't at its like highest. I feel like there wasn't ever really
mm,
big, massive fallings out, but people were a bit like to say grumpy again, like a bit, just a bit tired.
mm,
Anyway, I don't want to be too negative, but I feel like we have kind of slightly negative associations with it. And then on
mm,
that note of like, I feel like after Still Life and Sky, and I said this in the listening party, I felt uh,
mm,
there was after the success of Still Life and Skying, I feel like there was a little bit of a pressure to kind of continue that kind of feeling or
mm,
that kind of situation. And I feel like as a result, some of the songs, they should have been better or could have been better, or maybe we thought
mm,
they were more poppy and as a
mm,
result, they kind of are less, to my ear, substantial. So anyway, we went through
mm,
it, but like all records, you just have different moments. So like half of the record, I really like things like Sleepwalk, First Step
mm,
of Spring, Jealous Sun. But then there's a couple of things like I just feel like they could have been better. So it's kind of frustrating. Things like I See You,
mm,
So Now You Know, like they were kind of singles. And I just feel like they're cool, but I think we could have done them a bit better. And I feel like it was slightly
mm,
reduced. That's my feeling about it. But I know everyone
mm,
has their different experiences with the music. We have our own experiences with music. There's no right or wrong experience, and it was really nice
mm.
just to be talking and hearing other people's opinions. So it was positive. It was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Next week we'll be doing the V listening party, and
Mm.
bring us up to basically in 2 weeks
Today. Yeah.
the new album. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I missed the first two actually. I got involved with Skying. I kind of wish I did the other
Mm.
ones now.
Is there anything else you sort of like to plug, whether it's your own DJ stuff or horror stuff? What sort of? I know you said you had in store shows coming up, so do you want to tell
Yeah,
us about
I guess it's the
that?
interviews that we've got coming up quite soon,
Mm.
which is going to be fun. And if you don't know about it already, check out the venue, see if there's still
Yeah.
tickets available. Come and see us doing it. It's going to be
Hmm.
Faris, Amelia, and I working in a slightly more stripped back with electronics and drum machines, but a kind of slightly more spaced out version of songs. So presented in a way that we haven't even quite played them, but you've never heard them before. So yeah,
Mm.
come and see us doing that, and if not, we've got a UK tour coming up at the end of the year, and
Mm.
hopefully be playing a show near you soon.